There is a common understanding that the Soviet Union was an atheistic state and all religions were harshly persecuted. While this is true in general, the situation was obviously much more complex, depending on the particular time period and the particular religious community. Russian Orthodox Church has always been a special case. The biggest and most influential community, it was an official state religion in the Imperial Russia for almost a millennium. In the new post-Soviet Russia, it still is the dominant church that enjoys many formal and informal privileges, although Russia is a secular country by its constitution. If we split the Soviet history by periods, we will see the real picture of the church-state relations and religious persecutions. The revolution of 1905 failed, but the last emperor, Nicholas II, was forced to do significant concessions in his politics. He introduced a constitution limiting his power, a parliament, and declared freedom of religion. The state church still enjoyed much privileges, but was no longer illegal to change faith and convert others. After the last revolution of 1917, when the Bolsheviks won, they immediately forced the secularization of the state and soon, in 1918, separated the church from the state and education. The Orthodox Church itself was split between two fractions, those who opposed the state and those who tried to cooperate. Alternative religious movements, such as evangelicals, experienced their golden years, because they were almost totally free to evangelize, send missions, and plant churches. The situation ended when Stalin came in full power in the early 30s. An enormous wave of repressions unfolded. These repressions did not use much specificity in targeting religious groups or any other social groups for that matter. Every religious group was persecuted equally hard, especially their leaders. Thus, most of the churches were simply unable to have a council or organizational meeting up until mid-40s, simply because most of their leaders either perished or were in Siberia. When the Soviet Union got involved in the World War II, especially after the German attack in June 1941, the priorities naturally changed. After the first devastating years of war, Soviet army gradually started taking over. By 1943, the Soviet power needed all kinds of ideological support, especially from religious communities that were mostly very patriotic and saw Hitler's forces as satanic. Although most of the leadership was destroyed, Stalin encouraged major Christian groups to consolidate. The Orthodox Church was allowed to elect a new patriarch, Sergei, for the first time in 20 years. Evangelicals were allowed to register one union in 1944. In order to legalize, many different communities had to merge into one and many were left behind. After the war, there were still repressions and persecution of free thinkers. However, certain religious groups were legalized and enjoyed relative freedom of worship. The next Soviet leader, Nikita Khrushchev, is remembered as a reformer and a critic of Stalin's personality cult. However, the anti-religious campaign that he unfolded targeted certain religious groups directly, and they suffered more of him than of Stalin. One of his notorious promises was to show the last priest on the TV. There was an unprecedented number of propaganda leaflets, public talks, popular and research literature, documentaries, and even movies against religion or particular groups. The most persecuted were unregistered Baptists and Pentecostals, who were accused of direct influence and financing from the West, brainwashing, and obscurantism. Members of these groups were sentenced to long prison terms, their children were taken away to state orphanages, others were discriminated in education and job market, and if they held church services in their houses, they were bulldozed to the ground so that families went homeless. Evangelicals, in turn, unfolded previously unseen underground dissident activity. Their organized support to the families of incarcerated, underground printeries, dissemination of Bibles and religious literature, collected signatures, and petitioned the authorities and foreign missions to raise awareness on the persecution of believers. These persecutions continued even after Khrushchev during the reign of Leonid Brezhnev. In the mid-1980s, Mikhail Gorbachev declared once again freedom of religion. Religious communities enjoyed a huge flow of neophytes and many new groups appeared. Nowadays, the Russian Orthodox Church and Islam have established their dominance. With the ban of Jehovah's Witnesses, we may see another wave of religious persecutions. Please like the video, leave a comment and subscribe to the channel. I see you all next time.